Hello and welcome to the Wake Up with Gratitude podcast. I'm your host, Julie Boyer, and this morning I have another very special guest. I'd like to welcome Beth Hewitt. Hello there.
Hello, Julie. Thank you for having me on your show today.
Oh, I'm so excited. This was one of those times when I met Beth through a group of podcasters. We are taking a course that's all about, monetizing your podcast. So stay tuned, podcast, because there will be, I'm going to start doing some mid-roll stuff and I'm going to be reaching out to sponsors. And I'm kind of excited about all this training. And Beth was making some comments in the Facebook Live. And I was like, oh, I want to check her out. So I went and checked her Facebook profile. And her cover photo says the 28-day gratitude journey. So I knew that immediately this was someone I had to talk to. I mean, such alignment around gratitude. Beth is the founder of Visualise You and the Visualise You Podcast. And after I listened to a few of her episodes, I knew that I had to have Beth as a guest on the podcast. Now, Beth is many time zones apart from me. She lives in the UK, just outside of Leeds. And I love that in today's world, in everybody being online and everything being, just through Zoom and Facebook Live, I'm grateful for the fact that I never would have met you otherwise. Like how you and I have been connected. So I start this podcast with a lot of gratitude for having you here. And you have a very interesting personal story. So I would love to hear a little bit about how you kind of came to be where you are today as the founder of Visualise You.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to share that with you. So, I've always been somebody that has been interested in kind of the universe and meditating and affirmations and things like that. So I've kind of grown up with that. My mum was very spiritual and into those kind of things. But my career has been just that. It has been just a series of pivots. So I've worked in many different sectors, from manufacturing to banking, retail to teaching. And then I've worked in positions which have allowed me to work across a number of different themes and sectors at the same time, which was really good for me because I'm somebody that I just want to enjoy the world and explore everything. And I think that's why I've had so many different pivots throughout my career. So it just made sense that I would end up being able to support people, whether that's to start a business or to pivot in their career, because I've done it so many times myself. And most recently, I've managed a number of business support programs for local government, which means I've supported a number of businesses locally as well as online now. So it kind of all culminates and comes together, where I now am able to support businesses and people to pivot, and started the Visualise You as a way to do that, because I wanted to bring kind of the spiritual aspect along with obviously the corporate experience as well, and be able to reach out to mainly heart-centered individuals to help them to do that.
No, I was just going to say, tell me a little bit about that though. You say, that you were just like a serial quitter. You were doing different things all the time. And you mentioned on your podcast why you kept finding yourself changing jobs. And what's the story behind that?
I mean, I'm like a sponge. So like I'll go in somewhere, and when I do something, I do it 110%. Like when I'm in a job, I'm doing that job. I'm not somebody who just leaves a job for the sake of it. I genuinely feel like I've given it my all. I've done my best. I've learned as much as I can, but now I'm looking for that next exciting, shiny thing that I can really get my teeth into and learn and grow from. And I just think as well that the range of personality types that you meet in different sectors and different skills, that just really appeals to me. And so, yeah, I just love doors closing and doors opening. And actually, if there's an opportunity for redundancy packages, or if service, your job's going through a service redesign, for example, I just I can't wait I'm like the first with the hand up, because I can't wait to see if there's an opportunity for me to do that. Yeah,
that is that's actually an incredible, really part of your personality and the way that you work. And I applaud you for taking that and turning it into a business to help others, because we both know that most people don't deal very well with change.
No.
Most people are not lining up saying, pick me for the change. They're like hiding in the corner and waiting and hoping it doesn't affect them. So do you think that's like because of your upbringing or just the way that you are? Like, that's a really amazing trait to have, to not be afraid of change?
I think it was just, I think it comes back to this idea of being in awe of the universe and the world. And so as a child, I, I didn't really like it being in the kind of education. I didn't like being institutionalized in, going through doing exams and doing your A levels and getting a degree, getting married. That didn't make sense to me. Why would you do that in that order? So it's always been there. And I just, it's just been part of who I am, I think. And so I could never wait to get out of the education system, and I could never wait to kind of move on to my next job, because I don't know. I think it's just me loving the whole experience of being alive, basically. So
That's amazing.
I've kind of embraced it. But when I was a child, I found that when you're hemmed in, obviously you can't leave school when you're in school. You can't make those choices. So I felt quite down and depressed about that. So I'm not saying like I'm this totally positive, joyous person throughout all of my life, but yeah, it's certainly that desire to certainly do something different as much as possible has always been there.
Yeah, you'd mentioned that you had a bit of a difficult time at school when you were younger. So it's interesting you mentioned about, being stuck in school and all that. I mean, we're in a very different time where I know it's a lot harder to do homeschooling overseas, like in the UK and Europe. Yeah. Very different situation than in North America and even in Canada. I live in one of the most liberal provinces in all of Canada, where homeschooling is actually like you can register your child as a homeschool child with the regular public school system and have the freedom to allow your child to learn the way that they learn best. And that's what I do with my daughter. And it's funny that you mentioned that, for me, school was always, I never fit in. I had a really hard time at school, but I was always like striving for the A's, trying to do the best, like you, I love to learn and absorb things and just always wanted to do my best. And I burnt out. When I finished my degree, I just didn't even know what to do. Like I couldn't continue going any more education. I couldn't strive anymore. So I understand that feeling too of like, not being sure where to land and trying different things and exploring it. And I've had that experience too at a number of jobs where I kind of like figured out my own job in a few short months. And then I like wanted to help and fix everybody else's and fix the place. So I get that feeling of like, you've done what you can here and you need to move on. So yeah, it's really neat to meet someone who kind of gets that feeling of like, yeah, there's so much more to do and there's so much more to experience. I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I run a number of different businesses. I'm allowing my business to go where it wants to go and not leaving myself in a box because I said this is what I was going to do in the first place. I imagine that some of the people you connect with, that must be something that they struggle with, is like, I said I was going to do this, I'm going to do this. How do I change?
Yeah, definitely. I think some people get stuck in a position, and I certainly have been there. So some of the people I speak to, they're in a really good job, and I think people put the monetary value above sometimes our own health and well-being. Yeah. So, there was times where I was stuck in a position I couldn't see a way forward because I couldn't see how I was going to match that salary. And I think a lot of people are like that. A lot of people find themselves in that situation.
Yeah, and that's not easy. And especially in the time period that we're in right now in a global pandemic. But you and I both, believe in the power of gratitude. We believe in our mindset. We believe that we have the power to create our lives. And this kind of leads me to the story that you shared on the podcast episode I listened to, which is a really incredible story of how you used gratitude to get through an extremely traumatic event, an accident that happened to your daughter. So I'd just like to give you some space to kind of share what happened, and then if you can tell us how gratitude was part of that journey.
Yeah, sure. So this was back in May of 2016, and I got home, and my partner phoned me. I just got onto the drive, and he said, "Where are you?" I said, "I've just got home." And he said, "Don't panic. There's been an accident. She's okay," meaning my daughter, "but the air ambulance is on its way." So if anybody ever says "okay" and "air ambulance" in the same sentence, you're like, yeah, I'm not quite sure about that. So anyway, he comes and gets me, and we drive to the field where this accident had happened. We don't actually know what had happened. Nobody saw it. It happened kind of a blink of an eye kind of situation, but she fell and hit her head on this stone floor, and then had seriously, and I don't want to get too graphic for your listeners, but she'd lacerated her lips and lost teeth and that kind of thing, and she had to have surgery, and she couldn't speak, she couldn't eat, and
she was horse riding at the time.
So she wasn't horse riding. She was visiting a family horse. She was just around.
I thought she was actually riding the horse.
No, she wasn't. She wasn't. So she doesn't even ride. Yeah, she was just there that day.
What?
Yeah. And
oh my gosh, I missed that part. I just didn't. I thought she was actually riding. So it was just an accident.
Just a freak accident. Yeah.
Wow. No wonder you must have been in the shock of like.
Yeah. I mean, like, what do you do as a parent? I think it's when we're going through personally a situation like that, I think there's that element of resilience that kicks in, isn't there? That we find strength from somewhere. I think when it's our children or a loved one, it's like a next level resilience, because you're kind of completely out of control. Like your faith is put in, ambulance staff and people in the NHS and people you've never met before, and now kind of they're going to try and fix this situation. So yeah, just a horrible situation, and I think those initial few hours were difficult, but all that through that time, when she was being initially seen to, I was kind of at the foot of the bed. Her dad was like at one end of the bed dealing with kind of the gory stuff, and I was at the other end of the bed kind of almost meditating and saying kind of Ho'oponopono sayings in my head. Excuse me, just get a glass of water. Sorry,
it's all good.
So I kind of went into kind of this meditative state essentially for the next week. Every opportunity that I got to do that, to be constantly saying a saying in my head and constantly meditating and kind of visualizing her smile again and what she would be able to do in the future, because she was a violinist, and she still is a violinist, but she was obviously unable to play violin when you've hurt your jaw. Yeah. And you can't rest a violin there anyway. And
you said she lost 7 teeth as well, right?
Yeah, 7 adult teeth as well. So these aren't even baby teeth. These are the ones that you keep for life, hopefully. So she lost 7. They managed to reimplant some of the teeth that she'd lost, but they also had to take some of her healthy teeth and turn them into other teeth. So they took like the molars to turn them into kind of a front tooth kind of situation. So even the ones that she'd lost, I know.
It's a lot. And she was 11.
A lot going on. She was 11 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was right at that period where the transition up to high school. And you have all these, as parents, we have these concerns anyway about actually what's it going to be like when they go to high school, but then to actually have, a physical appearance that it was different to what it was before. Again, you're thinking, how is this going to pan out? And but she said something really profound. She said, the people that say horrible things are not my friends, and the people that are nice to me, those are my friends. So, out of the mouth of babe kind of things. Yeah.
And then you talked about how you found a way to find things to be grateful for. So you mentioned a little bit about her, she wouldn't be able to play the violin right away. So what did she do instead?
So she asked if she could play piano. And so it's things like that. I think it's almost like she's got that same mindset as well. Being grateful for the ambulance staff, being grateful for the staff and nurses and doctors who are looking after her, being grateful for the first time that she's able to drink something again. So that I remember her face the first time she drank chocolate milk, that feeling of kind of, wow, this is a really nice taste when you can't eat or drink before that. And just looking for anywhere that you can for, those things to be grateful for, because they are there.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned as well that when you posted on Facebook, that friends, when things were concerned about her ability to perform in this end of year play that was very important to her as well. So how did that manifest for you?
Yeah, so one of the things that she's always wanted to do is be an actress. And she'd wanted to be in this end of year school play because it was something that they did in the last year. They did it for the whole school. And she just really wanted that opportunity. And so when you can't speak anymore, and that's a big thing when you're, those are the big things that 11-year-olds think about doing. And she thought she wasn't going to be able to do that. But we worked with the school and she got some lines, and we actually visualized together the amount of lines that she would get in the play, and then I think she got there or thereabouts that amount of lines in the play, and she was able to do it. It was some weeks later, but with the help of the school, and they believed that they could get her back on her feet, that she would. And she also did some exams during that period of time as well. So there's 3 exams that they do called SATs during that final year, and she wanted to do them. We said, you don't have to do them, there's no pressure from us or your school, but she was, I want to put my school uniform on, and I want to do those again. So just being grateful for all those kind of things, that she's got this resilience and wanting to do that, because it would have been very easy just to say you don't have to do that, and then even if she said you wanted to do it, say no, you're still not doing that kind of thing. Just supporting her to do that as well. Yeah.
That's a big one too, is that, I was reading a book by Amy Morin, which talks about the things that mentally strong people do. And she shared a story of a family whose son had been in an accident and he was in a wheelchair, and the parents had a bit of a different attitude than yours, which was kind of holding him back. And their fear of what his life would look like because he was now in a wheelchair was actually holding him back from living the life that he wanted. And I applaud you really for that ability to have the mindset to help and support your daughter in this way. Now, what's really important to point out here is you didn't start practicing gratitude the day your daughter got injured. No. Right? This had been a practice for you. I really, this is something I try to teach, is that gratitude is easiest to do when things are going well. And so we build the muscle so that when things aren't going well, we have that to lean on. So what is or maybe at the time, what kind of gratitude practices did you have in your life? You mentioned about repeating the sayings in your head. Were there other things that you were already doing?
So I have always kind of done journaling, and as part of that, I use gratitude at the same time. So when I say journaling, I don't mean kind of reflecting on your feelings, which I know a lot of people consider that to be, and it is, but I tend to use journaling as kind of future pacing and thinking about what I would like to show up in the future, and really getting into the detail of what that would look like using all the senses. And so every Sunday evening at 10 p.m, although that has slipped a little bit as Leah's got older and she doesn't go to bed as early, that's kind of slipped a little bit, but spending that time on a Sunday and writing down 3 things that I want to show up in my life, and then going into the detail of what that would actually look like. And then I revisit that every single Sunday. But before I do that, I will list 10 things that I'm grateful for, because I really believe that when you're grateful for things, even if that thing isn't in your life, but if you maybe grateful for the car that you've got right now, but actually what you need is a super brand new spanking car, but if you're grateful for what you've got right now, you're more likely to manifest that positive energy to be able to get the thing that you want, that new shiny car, into your life. And so I list the 10 things that I'm grateful for, and they can be any 10 things, but sometimes if I'm being really kind of specific about it, I will link them to the 3 things that I'm now going to go into a lot more detail with, and journal out in a lot more detail. So and I've done that for, I can't even remember how many years, and I continue to do that every week, because I do feel that it's hard sometimes to do it every day. It is a habit, isn't it, of getting into. So I think coming back to why I was able to then do that in that moment of trauma when I really needed it, that I'd built up those muscles, and so it didn't feel like well, I have to practice gratitude now, or I'm going to have to try and look for things. It was already there. It was almost like my default button was set, and I could easily find those things to be grateful for, when I think if I hadn't practiced it for so long, it wouldn't be so easy to find when you're faced with such adversity.
That's so important. And here's the thing is your gratitude practice is a weekly one. Mine is
Yes.
a daily one, like the
Yeah.
written work of it. Doesn't mean you're not thinking about gratitude on a daily basis, because
Yeah.
I can see that it's something that is a part of your everyday life. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that's important for our listeners, is that sometimes we get caught up and we're not able to do our daily gratitude practice, but you've scheduled it as a weekly practice.
Yes.
And for years and again and again and again, the future planning with gratitude is one of my favorite things to do. It's actually,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've manifested a number of amazing things in our lives because of my gratitude practice of being grateful for something that has yet to manifest on the physical plane, but acting as though it's already here. And it has definitely worked, including my husband, but that's all. Oh, but it is a practice. It's like a muscle you build over time. And then when you need it, if you're already fit, if you're already in shape, then
Mm-hmm.
you just can access it. And, having been through I've been through a couple of traumatic miscarriages after my daughter. So you and I both have one daughter, which I
Yeah.
think is a wonderful thing. That's the perfect number of children for my family, but I did have two traumatic miscarriages after, and I dealt with both using my gratitude. I used that as
Wow.
part of my healing,
Yeah.
but I had long been practicing gratitude before these things happen. And here's the thing, we all know like difficult things are going to happen in our lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so let's be prepared for them as much as possible. It's kind of the way that I would approach that, really.
Yeah. So speaking of being prepared, I
Uh-huh.
mentioned in your introduction that you have put together a 28-day gratitude journey. I am really excited to hear more about this. So tell me about this journey you've created.
So, I mean, this year has just been a crazy time for everybody, and we don't know what's coming next. So, I just really felt like I needed almost to give back a little bit at the end of the year, and to just help people maybe just take that time to take stock of what has actually happened, but what actually they can also be grateful for. Because
Mm.
I think we've heard throughout the pandemic, some people have been able to reset the button and maybe do things slightly different. Maybe there's been some pivoting going on. But then I think for some people, it still has been really hectic, and actually they haven't, even though they might have had to pivot in some respect, they maybe still haven't had that time to take stock of everything that's gone on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought, right, I'm going to do this. When's the best time to do this? And I thought, well, let's almost like a closing ceremony for 2020. Let's do it in December. Let's do it together, and then lead into 2021, maybe feeling a bit more resilient and having a little bit more clarity around what we might want to do. So it kind of brings back again. So as well as it being about gratitude, I want it to link it to the visualization side of things, because obviously that is what I do in my gratitude practice. And I feel there's obviously that natural link together. So the gratitude journey is very much kind of it will be a daily thing. I know that I said that I do it monthly, but for the purpose of the journey it will be every day, and it will be kind of gratitude prompts and gratitude reflections, of things to think about, and over the 4 weeks there'll be different kind of themes. So the first one, and I'll have to check all my notes because I can't remember everything, but the first week will be kind of around everyday gratitude, because I think being able to find things in everyday life I think sometimes we think, oh, we have to be grateful for having this fabulous job or having this, lovely new kitchen. But actually, if you can find gratitude in the tomatoes you've got in the fridge,
Yeah.
or the petrol that you've got in your tank, that kind of thing, I think
Yeah.
we need to be able to do that more, because then it allows you to think about some of the bigger things that you'd really want to manifest in your life. So that's kind of week
Okay.
one. But there'll also be like training as well. So in week one, I want to introduce people to the emotional guidance scale, which I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah.
So Jerry and Esther Hicks, I think it was
Oh,
based in,
oh yes.
from the
I
work
love
of
it.
Abraham. So I
I
want
love
to
it.
introduce people to the emotional guidance scale, and
So
being
good.
able to find that better feeling thoughts, to be able to move them up the to joy, essentially.
Yes, to joy. I love it.
Yeah. And then week 2 was going to be around your uniqueness. So being able to embrace our uniqueness, because I think we all have kind of different things that we geek out about, don't we? So really understanding what it is that, what does that mean to us, and why am I special because of these unique traits, you know? And then the training that week would be around kind of finding your unique voice. Week 3 is about superpowers. So anybody that comes on to the Visualise You podcast, I always ask about superpowers, because I feel like we've all got these skills and experiences that we should share. And I think we don't always do that as human beings. We don't always say, actually, I'm really good at this. We're taught to be quite humble, I think. So I think starting to identify and be grateful for these superpowers that we have.
Yeah.
And then the training that week would be around how you can release those superpowers more into the world, kind of thing, in the future. And then the final week would be around creating the new vision for 2021.
Yes.
And then training that week could be around kind of journaling and visualization, and kind of an introduction into that as well. So I'm kind of jam packing all kinds of different things into the month, but I just hope it opens people's eyes and gets people thinking differently, and then they can just kind of set off in 2021, hopefully feeling, you know.
So this starts at the beginning of December.
1st of December.
1st of December. Okay. And then where do we find, I know you have a link to sign up for this. So what's the link?
Yes, if you go to visualiseyou.com/gratitude, you'll find the link there.
Amazing. So we'll make sure that link is in the show notes and in the video notes as well. And I really encourage people to sign up for this, because I've actually just finished, we did a 30 days of gratitude challenge for the month of October, and it really is. I'm actually going to be sharing some of the testimonials and things in another podcast episode. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, make sure you catch that one. And then, join Beth. This is a great chance to really connect with someone who has gratitude as a passion and a foundation for her life. And I'm excited. I'm going to sign up for it. I love to learn from other people. And I mean, why not spend a month in gratitude with a bunch of people that want to be grateful? I feel like December is going to be a challenging month.
Yeah.
The Christmas this year will not look the same. If you celebrate Christmas or whatever holiday you're celebrating, is not going to be the same.
Yeah.
And understanding that, and, finding ways to find gratitude in what you are able to do is going to be a big challenge. So I'm excited that you're doing this. So
thank you so much.
Of course. Okay. So where do we find your podcast?
So I'm on all podcast platforms. So if you search for Visualise You, but if you search it with an S, because I know that in the US and other places it's with a Z, but Visualise You with an S. My website's bethhewitt.com or visualiseyou.com, and you can find me from both of those places.
And perfect. And we find you on socials under Beth Hewitt?
Or Visualise You. Yeah,
okay.
You'll find me with Visualise You. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, we'll post all the relevant links, but if you're listening and you just want to remember Visualise You, it's easy. It sounds like it's pretty easy to find you, Beth. This has been so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think what is really wonderful about your story is that, you went through something that could have really torn your family apart. It could have really changed the trajectory of your daughter's life in a negative way. And on the other hand, tell us.
On the other hand, she's, she plays piano, she plays violin, she's played violin at the Royal Albert Hall. She's, been on TV, she's been an extra on TV because, she wants to be an actress. And it just, I think, we don't know why it happened. And I think we never know, do we, in these situations. But I think if sometimes these things happen because it's to set us off on a different path. And if anybody's going through any troubling times right now, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and there is a way to look at things differently. So,
and I often say it's not the gratitude for the accident or the trauma or the loss. No. That's not what we're grateful for. It's like, how do we find things out of that situation? Even we're looking back, you're looking back now and you're like, oh my gosh, look at all these things that came because our path changed. I think this is a deep gratitude practice. This is going deep in our gratitude and finding ways when things don't work out, where is that gratitude hidden?
Yeah.
So Thank you, Beth. I've just really, really enjoyed our time together. I really encourage people to join your 28-day gratitude journey. And just thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.